Right, breaking the program of monarch mind control. And as I've said, Lucifer, or the papacy, and the Queen of Heaven, which is the Church of England and its daughters, which includes all Pentecostal churches, charismatic churches, Methodist, Anglican, Seventh-day Adventist, Reform, Winners' Chapels, etc., whatever name the denomination thereof, it all comes under the Protestants or the Church of Heaven, which is governed by its deity, the Queen of Heaven, and we're told to come out of these of this church. Before I get into breaking the program of monarch mind control, what I want to say is that the church has always been around. And let me just give a definition of the church for us. Church, when you look in a dictionary, any Bible dictionary, you'll see that church means kirk, Kirk. And if you go to Scotland, you will see kirk in Scotland. You will also see kirk in Kirkuk, which is in Iraq. So just to summarise this, it's all based off Nimrod or Hasatan himself. Where do we first find the first experience of the church? We find the first experience of the church in the Garden of Eden, when there was a perpetrator in that garden who gave a half-truth to Eve, and then Eve ate the fruit. We all know the story. Eve ate the fruit, and she offered the fruit to her husband, and he ate the fruit. Their eyes were open, they realised they were naked, and then they fell. Okay? So church has always been around. If you look in Acts, reference chapter 4, verse 13. I don't really like using references like numerology and all that in my videos, but for those of you who need to have a scripture reference, there's a scripture reference. So Acts 4, verse 13. If you read in the King James Version, just read it through. What you'll see as you read that scripture is that they came and gave sacrifices to Jupiter's priests, and they laid the sacrifices at the gates. Okay? However, when you go and read Tyndale, it says a completely different thing. What it does say is they came and laid their sacrifices, and they laid to Jupiter's priests, and they laid these sacrifices at the church. And I found this really interesting because Tyndale only uses the word church once, and he uses the word churches once. So only twice in the Tyndale version will you see the word church. And when I looked in the King James, just did a search, it came up with 111 times. And just a side note, when I because I taught IT, I taught computer programming, and when you sort of change that binary, which is the 111, to a decimal number, it comes out at 421, which is also Queen Elizabeth II's birthday. So that's my side note. But coming back to Tyndale, he uses the word church, and I was thinking, well, why is this? Why did King James use gates and Tyndale only use church? Because then I realised that if the King James Version had used church, people would have realised that when they're bringing their sacrifices to church, they're actually worshipping the Roman deity, Jupiter, for the male. And for the female, when you read in Acts 19, you will see that the Ephesians were worshipping Diana, some know as Artemis, but still the same deity, the Queen of Heaven. Okay, so church is all about worshipping strange deities, and as Hebrews we are told we should not have any strange deity, none whatsoever.